Good afternoon, students. Today we're going to talk about a design principle called contrast. Your essential questions for this lesson are: what is contrast? How do you achieve contrast in your work? And in what areas of art does contrast apply?
Today we're going to look at our very first design principle in art, and that's called contrast. Contrast literally means difference. It's the difference between things. Mainly it applies to your use of value in a drawing. But it also applies to paintings and color. You can have strong contrast or weak contrast in your piece. Well, if you want very strong contrast in your piece, that's a good thing. Strong contrast means that your dark values are very dark. Likewise, your light values are very light. And there's also a wide range of all those little different gray values in between. So that's what you want to shoot for in your pieces. Weak contrast means that there is either too much or too little of dark and light. And you'll see some examples of that. So how does this apply to you guys when you're making things? Well, you address contrast not only throughout your piece. You're not only just when you're drawing or painting, you're trying to make sure you got a wide range of values, but at the end, at post-production, you take a step back and you say, I could probably increase the contrast here. And you do that one of two ways. You go in and you find your darkest areas and you make them darker. Or you find your lightest areas, make those light areas just a little bit lighter, and so on. You could use an eraser for that, or you could even do both. It increases that. So you're adding extra values to it to make it look really cool. And finally, my college professor, every time he would critique people's work, the number one thing he would say is it needs more contrast. So strong work has very strong contrast. Right down here, we've got an example of a black and white forest photograph. Look at that. Let's just zoom in on it. This baby, look, there's a wide range. You can find all the white areas. You can also find black areas, in those tree roots. But there's also a wide range of grays. There's dark grays, there's light grays, and all sorts of middle grays. Remember, those are called midtones, the areas between your dark and your light values, the area between your highlight and your shade. And sure enough, there's plenty of highlight and plenty of shade in that, and there's plenty of midtone. And you can sure see, there's a wide range of different values here. You've got dark, light, and this wide range. Now you guys are focusing mainly on three, highlight, midtone, and shade. But for your work, for good craftsmanship, you need to try to get those to blend together, right? So your best way to do that is try to, like if you've got a dark area and then a gray area, try to get those middle values in between the two to make them seamlessly flow. Okay, so you've got this piece right here with very, very weak contrast. There's either gray or there's white. Well, what do? Well, if you layer, you go in, and this would be the easiest way to fix this if this were a black and white drawing. If this is what your piece looks like at the end of your assignment, well, when you're in post-production, then you can go in there and look, okay, I need to add more contrast. So let's start with the darker areas, and all you do is you just increase the contrast. You layer in some more pressure on some areas, go to a pressure 2, 2.5, make those marks in the dark areas, and you just increase the contrast. Start from the darker areas, and work your way into the light. And likewise, you might need to make your gray values get a little bit darker as well. That's okay. That's just the final touch-up stage. Now, what if your piece looks something like this? Well, really, if you're all black and all white, there's really not much you can do at this point. It's so much easier to add something than it is to take away. And in this case, you'd be doing a lot of taking away in order to get these values down so that you can have some midtone. Now, value also applies to color. Let's look at this underwater ocean pic. This is a great example of contrast. Look at this. If contrast means difference, we've got great contrast between the dark area of the ocean down here and this sunlight filtering through up in the corner. This is one of my college professors, and he teaches painting. And if you look at this is a giant kite that he made, but he does it with vibrant color. He doesn't ever use black or white in his piece, ever. But his strongest aspect of his work is the high contrast in it. This is the professor I was telling you guys about. He's got tons of value. You see the red feathers. They're really light feathers, and they're very dark red feathers also. So you can have lots of color, lots of contrast in a color piece. Thomas Kincaid, he's one of my favorite artists, mainly because he has such strong contrast in his work, and he's very, very well versed at painting light. Look at the contrast, a bright white sky right up against all these bold rocks, and still the sea, even for it, is nice and bold. There's a wide range of color in this one. And once again, look, putting a light thing next to a dark thing helps pull those out. And once again, this one's just to demonstrate that you don't need to have contrast in just black and white. Look at how bold and vibrant. The areas with the highest contrast are the bright red, maroon maple trees in this one. So what you choose as your colors can also affect the contrast in a piece. I look forward to seeing you in class. Take care.